walking down from my bedroom down to my floor, first floor, and I face planted. My wife was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for our children. She heard gurgling and she heard a thud. She knew that was very unusual. So she came over to where she heard the thud. It was me in the bathroom, and I was out. She started to scream. My son at that time, fortunately, he's a water polo player, and he didn't have morning workout that morning, which, you know, count my lucky stars. She called 911. They explained the situation. I have Skylar, my son. He has 2 younger sisters, and they were at the house too, eating breakfast or preparing for breakfast. My wife is screaming in panic. My 2 younger daughters are screaming, crying. Dad, me, is, you know, eyes, nothing, no breathing, no anything. But the 911 operator coached my son how to do CPR. He's not a lifeguard. He's never had CPR training or anything. But I asked him afterwards, I said, Skylar, how did you know what to do? And he said, well, we called 911 and I watched TV, Dad. So I got through that situation, but it was so intrigued me how I was just, the heart wasn't pumping, no oxygen in my lungs. How in the world did I get from that point when I woke up several days later in Hoag Hospital, which is in Newport Beach, just down the road here. I woke up and I had tubes all in me. I had tubes in my arm, both arms. I had this thing coming out of my nose. I had all this stuff on me, and I was in a hospital gown, which confused me when I woke up. It confused me because I saw my mother, I saw my wife. They were the only ones in the room at the time, and they were crying. And my immediate thought was, oh no, it's my dad, or it's one of my children. I knew intellectually I was in a hospital, but I couldn't imagine it was me. It had to have been, if my wife or my mother was there, it had to be one of our family members or perhaps a family friend. But I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee. And as I was getting up, my mother blocked me. She just, literally she came out and she went like this. She goes, you can't move. And I said, Mom, I gotta go pee. And she said, no, you can't move. And I, you know, sometimes some men in this room can understand when your mom tells you to do something, sometimes you just go, okay, whatever. And that was one of those whatever moments. But she was still blocking me very, very effectively. And the last thing you want to do when you're a older man is pee in front of your mother. So I'm trying to push her out of the way, and then she said, Steve, you had a heart attack. And then I said, whoa, wait a second. I said, in my mind I was thinking, okay, I'll deal with this after I go to the bathroom. I try to get up, but at that time my wife would, I guess, push the buzzer or whatever. The nurse had come in the room, and evidently the nurse had heard this interaction. She grabbed me by the shoulders, helped me out of bed, and it was very difficult to walk. My feet were so heavy, and I couldn't understand what that feeling was. And as I was standing in front of the toilet, the nurse kindly had me very firmly by the shoulders. She whispers in my ear, you should really listen to your mother. So then I'm thinking, okay, I have to understand this situation. And so what happened was, I went back to bed. By that time, the cardiologist would put the stent in my heart, said, explaining all the situation, and he was speaking very slowly to me. What is your name? How many I couldn't understand why he was speaking so slowly. I said, "Doctor, I can understand you." And then I said, "You can speak faster." So he started to speak normally, and he's explaining all this. And all I'm thinking at that time, I know it sounds strange, but my son, who had saved me, had a water polo tournament that weekend. And I'm thinking, I gotta get out of here, because I want to see that tournament. And so the doctor's explaining, and he says, what? I said, "Okay, doctor, I understand that, but when can I get out of here?" He says, "No, take your time. It's going to be a long recovery." And he said, "Well, why do you ask?" I said, "Well, my son has a water polo tournament this weekend." And then he turned to my wife, and he said, "When's the tournament?" And she said, last weekend. So I was out for a while. But when I realized all this scenario, my wife then proceeded to explain to me this process, how previous to my heart attack, I had traveled a lot. I had traveled twice to Tokyo from LA, once to New York. That was 3 very long trips in 11 days. And when I was in Asia, I wasn't sleeping at night, and during the day, I was up. So I was up many hours over an 11-day period. I remember landing in LAX, and sort of my world was my peripheral vision was coming closer and closer together. And all I remember is my wife picking me up at the airport, driving, we had dinner, and that was the last thing I remember until I woke up. But in that time, I wanted to know exactly what happened every step of the way. And every step of the way, I found out later, okay, 911 was called. Okay, the paramedics came. The doctor was there. Everything that kept me alive was perfect. It was a perfect storm of goodness. It was a perfect storm of timing. I could have collapsed and the kids could have been at school. I could have collapsed and I could have been the only one at home. I could have collapsed and my son could have panicked. I could have collapsed and perhaps the 911 operator couldn't communicate adequately to a teenage boy. Every single point in that process went perfectly. When the paramedics came, the paramedics saw what my son was doing, and later they complimented him. They told me, "Thank you very much." And I know what the paramedics said, because after I was discharged from the hospital, I made a point to go to the firehouse. I know it sounds strange, but I knocked at the firehouse door. And it's not often a 50-year-old man goes over to the firehouse door and knocks on the door, and he opens up and says, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I don't know if it was you, but it was somebody in this fire station who saved me." And I said, "I live at such and such street, and it was, several weeks ago." And he said, "Oh," he goes, "Oh, you." And then he told me exactly what happened during that chain of command. I forgot the word that this community uses, the chain of survival. The chain of survival for me was perfectly executed. It was so perfect that my doctor, Dr. Carter at Hoag Hospital, he said to me, "Wow, your timing is perfect." He goes, "You're my miracle man." I said, "Doctor, why?" He said, "Because that morning, I believe it was somewhere between 8 and 9 when I went in. I was the 4th 50 to 60-year-old man from Huntington Beach area, my hometown, that was taken to Hoag Hospital. 3 of the men did make it, and I did." Now, I don't know them, but what was very comforting to me is I wanted to know exactly how this chain of survival worked. And so I found out who the dispatcher was. I was able to meet the paramedics, the nurses in the ICU. I was able to thank. And I know many times all of you do wonderful jobs all the time, but for all the survivors like me, we wake up every morning with a smile. Every morning that I wake up now, get an extra day. An extra day of life is here. I should not have been here. But this chain of survival worked at every single step of the way. And I know the paramedics didn't know me, the dispatcher didn't know me, the nurses didn't know me, the doctor didn't know me, no one knew me. But everybody put a passion, your training, your education, everything in that perfect storm of survival. And I'm here today, and just understanding this chain of survival is remarkable to me. How people from every walk of life come together in this continuum of life. It's remarkable. So I just want to say, continue your great work. Thank you very much. Anything that you do when you touch people, and when I say that touch now, I understand, you know, the science nowadays, the medical community is making all kinds of pharmaceuticals. You know, I saw the pictures of me in the ICU. There's all this incredible medical equipment. You know, we've got very learned people pushing the boundaries of science and medicine. But it's literally these two things that initially kept me alive. And, you know, we have these two things, and thank you very much, American Heart Association, for teaching us, and especially the young kids who, like my son, who had no hesitation to follow orders. So thank you very much.